Peggy Cornwell and I are sitting here in the library at the Valley County Pioneer Museum, and she and I are looking at the Hinsdale history, and this is a binder of information on a host of topics that center on Hinsdale, especially early Hinsdale. And our videographer is Brady Johnson, and he had kind of looked through here earlier, and he was so pleased to find these photographs of Bud Hillman's, because, and Peggy has some memories of them too. And Peggy, why don't you tell me, or tell us, the memory that you have about this tree?
The tree on the way to the Old Red Bridge. And the Old Red Bridge was the picnic spot, and it was sort of the, we didn't have cars. They weren't making them during the war, so by the time we were in high school, things were done pretty much afoot. So a group or a couple could walk out to the Red Bridge and have food. There was one, and that I would not dare say if my parents were still alive, but somebody had a garden out there, and we were absolutely forbidden to raid gardens. And the night I remember, the group I was with was more the younger. I would have been maybe a senior in high school, but they were the younger people, younger kids. But we had a rule when we raided a garden, you had to eat everything that was taken. Well, some way or another, the passing out slips idea got mixed up, and we ended up with more heads of cabbage.
Oh dear.
So we got to the point where everybody had eaten all the cabbage we could hold, but we held to the rule until somebody found a worm in one of them. So the next thing we saw was a cabbage leaf flying off and saying, "There's a worm in that one. There's a worm in that one." But that was the end of that. But I would never have let my folks know that we were participating in that. However, the day that I left for college, and that's another one, I even remember who we were with. It was in the fall, and it was pumpkin time. And pumpkins come in different shapes, but we took 2 pumpkins, which we were going to, I wasn't involved because I wasn't going to be there the next day. But one of them was short and fat, and the other was tall and long. And I knew, I mean, you recognize a pumpkin when you have it. Got a letter from my mother not too long after that when I'd arrived at college, and she said, "I can't understand it, but when I looked over at the garage this morning, here in the garage door was 1 fat pumpkin and 1 tall, skinny pumpkin." And we always said that our folks had eyes in the back of their head. But that was the picnics down at the Red Bridge were pretty much, I won't say every day, but during the spring and fall, more so than during the summer, because there were more kids around to go on a picnic with.
Well, I remember that too. Of course, it was a few years later, but at the end of year school picnic,
Oh.
1st and 2nd grade went at one time, 3rd and 4th graders went at another time, and I think by the time we got to 5th and 6th, then we could go to the hot water wells for the end of year school picnic. But we would walk out to that old red bridge, which is just beyond there. And Brady, I think you said that it's washed away, so it looks different now.
Mm-hmm. The bank is right up to the tree now.
And were you aware of that, Peggy?
Oh, yes.
Well, you can go out there, you can just see where
Yeah,
tons and tons of dirt have sloughed off.
Uh-huh.
Chester Place was always to the south of the road. The big trees, the big white house. And the river has worn away now. The house is gone, and there are a few of the trees and brushes left right on the riverbank where the feedlot is now.
And then Peggy says that this is this second picture of Bud Hillman's shows on the way to the Old Red Bridge, Shirley and Gary Hillman, photo by their father, Bud Hillman. And it's the same tree. And then the third picture was taken up at the railroad track when the depot was still there, and there was the tree there. And Brady, in one of his earlier interviews, learned about somebody being really disappointed, and maybe Brady will tell us about that one.
Yeah, I think I was visiting with Kay Feld, and she said that when I was asking her about the depot, she didn't know a whole lot about the depot, but she really remembered that tree. And her and her family were so mad when that tree went away because that was their parking spot. Park under the tree, and it was nice and cool. And from what I've heard, that tree was a big part of the community.
Well, you could park at the tree and watch everybody driving by and know exactly who was out with whom in what car every night.
And John Rennick would also be sitting up there quite often too, looking things over.
Watching.
And he was the deputy that I remember in Hinsdale.
Well, Kay's dad was there
Later, yeah.
watching things too.
Uh-huh. And of course, this is just one of the many things that we have in the archives, but we have collected this Hinsdale material pretty well. And earlier today, when we were looking through things, we found something that clarified about the flagpole in Hinsdale. And that was from Bob McCauley, wasn't it?
Yep, that was Bob McCauley's notes.
And in his notes, he said that it was constructed in a wooden one, constructed in 1918, and remained there until 1939, and then replaced by a metal one. And then it was there, that one was there till 1966 when they put the highway. What is that number? Is that Highway 246?
Something like that.
It has a number down through Main Street, and the powers to be said that we couldn't have a flagpole in the middle of the street. Peggy and I, growing up, remember it as being in the middle of the street, kitty-cornered from the Claypool General Store and from the Rainbow Room, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so that was great. And then Brady added something that I guess I didn't remember, and that is that was then cut off, and it's a part of the one down in the Legion Park there.
At the hall.
At the hall.
Legion
At the hall.
Yeah,
At the
that
Legion
was-
Hall. Yes. So.
And it took some research finding out what had happened to the metal one.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just all of that is so darn interesting.
Well, I really remember the fuss they made about having the cement, and that would have been in '39 when they put the metal one up.
And we have a local lore story about Louis Stuff, who was a musician and it's a great story, but we didn't locate that right now, so that we'll have to save that for another time. But we are sitting in the library, and our shelves in here are filled with all kinds of things, including a significant collection of annuals from Glasgow, but also from Hinsdale. My mom had all of them up until they moved to Glasgow to the Niemont Manor in 1983, except for one when they had just a few copies that were made during one of the war years. And Junior Laycock gave us a paper copy of that because it was his graduating class, whatever that was, 1945 or 44, something like that. So we have a pretty nice collection. Other communities we don't have as many of, like Opine and Nashua, and even Fort Peck. Fort Peck had a high school too. We also have a few local authors' books, and a lot of Montana ones. We have a complete collection of Montana, the Magazine of Western History. We're proud of the fact that it began publication in 1951 in Helena and has continued ever since then. And so we have it current from 1951 up to now. And that Peggy would have to bail out because she has an appointment, and I'm aware of that. But we have lots of family histories, and this is a nice sitting room. People can come in and read and look around at all kinds of things. For instance, we have a few cookbooks sitting here. Barb Hoffman, our supervisor, is sort of partial to cookbooks, and we have quite an extensive collection of community cookbooks, etc. But one that we pride ourselves with is that White House cookbook from 1916. And then when we move from this room into the archives have the documents, the papers. We're especially thankful to Manson Bailey, who served for a number of years on the Montana Historical Society board. And when he was attending a meeting and they were converting to microfilm a lot of their newspapers, and they were going to destroy the printed copies, and so he hauled them back long before Glasgow even had a museum. But he hauled them back and they were stored here, and so eventually when the museum was built, they became an integral part of our research. And we have a lot of the Glasgow papers, the Hinsdale paper, and we have an index of all the different papers that we have up to, I think the earliest one is 1893 or 1895, and then up to a pretty extensive collection up to 1950. And then it's hit and miss since then, but we have quite a few more. In the archives, we also have a community file, so all of the communities that make up Valley County in particular, from Beaverton on the west to Fraser on the east and north. And just lately we received an album via the Ophis family. Carolyn Ophis Wendell has put it together, or she was the one who made copies for us at the museum, and it's being put into a binder also of early day teeny or Taney from far north Valley County. And so that's the communities. And then we also have a subject file. And so just lately someone wanted to know when the hanging took place in Glasgow. 1903, June 18th. We found that specifically, and it's quite a story. I know I ran a copy of the story and took it home and read it in more detail. And then we have the room that is characterized as the resource room or the research room, and that is if you were wanting to come into the museum and do some research, you would be free to sit at a very nice table and look through the family files that are extensive, and you could, there are lots of information there, including obituaries, including whatever it happens to be in anybody's family. And I think those are sort of the highlights of what we have. We have scrapbooks over there that are that Dick Eaton did of the things that he took out of those diaries that I believe are in the basement at Sid Simonson's home. So there's a lot of different clippings in that are just sort of interesting sometime when you've got time to putter around, and I know.